Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Inside Lines podcast. I'm your host, Atoya Burleson.
And I am Tia Avril.
Coming up a bit later in this show, we'll be chatting with Registered Dietitian Farrell Frankel. But before we get into all of that, Tia, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It has been like the skies opened up and just dumping water on the city of Seattle. So I decided to take a last minute trip to Scottsdale. Well, not even Scottsdale, it was in Mesa, but Phoenix for a basketball tournament. So we can get some sun and all of the things. And I was surprised because, it's AAU where you get a bunch of reclasses and the playing level it varies. Mm-hmm. It was pretty leveled because they've been honing in on birthdays and not fooling around. So it was a good weekend.
That's good. That's awesome. And Arizona, that's home for me. So I know what you're saying about that sun is special.
Yeah, right. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. It was pretty chill. On Sunday, my son got nominated for, it's like a Man of the Year for student athletes that do community service and give back. And so he was honored for his school. And so he received tickets to the Jets game. We went to MetLife Stadium and watched the game, and he got honored right after halftime, and the Jets got a win too. So it was a good weekend.
I know, that's right. That's good. Congratulations, Nene.
Yeah, he's growing on up, girl.
Girl, he sure is. Coming into his own. It's been pretty cool to see. So congrats.
Yes. All right. So let's talk. Should we talk about women in sports?
Yeah, let's get into women in sports. It has been a lot going on, and it was kind of hard to narrow down, but I at least got it down to 2 categories, okay?
Okay.
Look, so number one, let's talk the WNBA Draft. So the draft lottery happened over the weekend, and the Indiana Fever received the number 1 draft pick for the 2nd year in a row, which is ridiculous. Right. But this draft class is a bit out of control, and I don't even think I fully realized, but you got Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camron Brink, Paige Bueckers, I think that's how you say her name, Aaliyah Edwards, and more coming out. So, of course, now everybody's doing mock draft, trying to see who's going where. And of course, they think Caitlin Clark will be who the Indiana Fever draft. So it's going to be cool. Like women's basketball is they just keep on stepping it up. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to watch them raise the bar and celebrate these women the right way.
Yeah. And then we talked about this briefly towards the end of the episode last week, but women's college volleyball, the Final Four is set. So we told y'all, the tournament was on and popping, and it was some amazing games, which have been held in true through Sweet 16, all of that. So the Final Four, which starts this Thursday, the Wisconsin Badgers take on Texas Longhorns, and Nebraska Huskers take on Pittsburgh Panthers. And then, of course, the championship will take place on Sunday. So if y'all want to see some girls getting it in, check out these games Thursday. And then, of course, the championship on Sunday.
Yes, I'm a volleyball mom. My daughter plays volleyball, so I love watching it. I love watching it with her. It's definitely a way for us to connect for sure. So y'all check it out. Women's volleyball is it. Like if y'all think basketball is great and, all of these other sports that they really, I guess, hone in on. Volleyball now is so intense and so fun, and I'm obsessed.
Listen, it's so exciting to watch. So make sure y'all checking it out and supporting these ladies, okay?
Yes. And lastly, don't forget that we do have our Inside Lines t-shirts. So make sure to get your season 5 t-shirts now. Head to the link in our bio on Instagram. You can head to the link on our website and scoop your merch and represent us.
Yes. Christmas coming. So get your orders in to make sure y'all have y'all stocking stuffers or little gifts under your tree before the holidays.
Yes. All right, y'all. Well, that is it. Coming up next, our conversation with Farrell Frankel. On the show today, we have a registered dietitian who specializes in sports nutrition and athlete nutrition. She has worked with collegiate athletes as well as NFL, NHL, MLB, and NBA athletes. She is the first football dietitian to start a nutrition program with the football program at Boston College. And in addition to her role as a football dietitian, She has founded Fueled by Farrell, a company that offers educational resources for athletes. Please welcome to the show, Farrell Frankel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're excited to have you on. I mean, come on. Like, this is right up our alley. We both have athletes. I was an athlete in college. There's so many questions that we want to get into. But first, congratulations on being the first to ever do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think about I was reading about your bio and your background, and you started this journey from being a social worker to becoming a registered dietitian. And then you decided to specialize in sports nutrition. Tell us about that journey, how you got to where you are.
So yeah, when I was in undergrad, I really honestly just had no idea what I wanted to do as my career. I played soccer my whole life, like up until college. So through high school, I was like a competitive soccer player. When I got to college, I was just like a lost teenager, and I knew I wanted to do something in the sports realm, but I wasn't sure what it was that I wanted to do. So I actually worked in the athletic training room where I went to college, and I would help like stretch athletes and tape their ankles and stock tape and make sure the cold tubs were cold enough. And I did that for 4 years when I was in undergrad. So it had nothing to do with nutrition, but it was related to athletes. And when I finished undergrad, I pretty much knew that I did not want to go down that career path. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do career-wise. I had my major in psychology. My sister was a social worker at the time, and she basically was like, there's an opening at my company and you can work here. So I worked with kids who were ages like 4 to 17, and I did in-home therapy with them. So I would go to their house and kind of learn about the family dynamic and learn about, maybe they were having a behavioral issue at school or at home. And I would sort of do like play therapy with them along with another team of social workers that were kind of like helping me with that career. So I did that for 3 years and I loved it, but I was like waking up every morning feeling unfulfilled. Like, this isn't it. Like there's something more for me. And I really just had no idea what it was going to be. And I went to the gym one day, and the girl at the front desk, I'll never forget this. I went in and I was like, do you want to train for a Spartan race with me? Because I need something to wake up and like do every day. Like, that's going to get me excited to get out of bed.
What's a Spartan's race?
It's basically one of those like obstacle course races that's like, they have different
You go
types
underneath.
of them.
Yeah, climb up. All that.
Yeah, you like climb up a rope and jump off a thing. And I was just like, maybe I should train for something like that just to like be excited for something. And I went into the gym and I told her, I was like, do you want to train with me? And she was like, well, actually, I'm going to be training for a body transformation challenge on bodybuilding.com. It's a 10-week challenge. You submit your pictures week 1 and week 10, and the winner gets $100,000. And I was like, oh, I think I'll train for that.
Right.
100K, yes.
And so she was like, yeah, one of the trainers at the gym is going to help us with our nutrition. He's going to help us with our workouts. Like, let's do it. And I was like, okay, like I'll train with you. So I trained with her for 10 weeks. I didn't win the overall transformation, but there was a weekly winner, and I actually did win one of the weekly like winners. And so I got a whole bunch of gear from like a company that gave me like protein powder and bags and shirts. And through that process, my body really did start to change. It wasn't just my body, but it was also like my energy levels, my motivation, my sleep. And I really attributed that to changing my nutrition. And other girls in the gym were coming up to me and they're like, can you help me with my nutrition? I see like you're making a transformation. Like, I love you to help me. And like, I had no degree. I had no idea what I was talking about, but I was like counseling nutrition with these girls at the gym, like helping them with their meal prep, inviting them over to cook grilled chicken, whatever. And I started to think, like, could I get paid for this? Like, is this something that I could turn into a career? So sure enough, I started Googling and was like, how to become a nutrition professional to get paid for nutrition advice. And that's the first time I heard of a registered dietitian. I had literally never heard what a registered dietitian was in my entire life. And I looked at the coursework, and it turns out I had taken none of the courses that I needed to take in order to go to school for this.
Oh, shoot.
So you started over.
I had to start over. And I needed, and it's actually, it was really a full circle moment because the summer that I decided I really want to be a registered dietitian, I was unsure if I could do some of the course load because it is a heavy, like a lot of the prerequisites are heavy science courses. You have to take organic chemistry and you have to take like biology. And I'm just not, that wasn't for me. So I actually one summer decided I'm just going to see if I can do it. I'm going to take anatomy and physiology. And I was living in Boston at the time. And I decided I'm going to do this at Boston College because I live across the street. So I'm just going to take this one course over the summer, see if I like fail or I pass. And then after that, I'll apply to nutrition school. So it's really weird that now I am at Boston College, which is kind of where it all started when I took anatomy and physiology. This is, I think, 15 years ago now.
Wow.
So I had to go back to
look like for that.
So I had to go back to school for about 4.5 years. So you have to take like your general like science courses, your anatomy, physiology, organic chemistry, biochem. And then there's also nutrition specific courses that you have to take. So you have to take things like metabolism, medical nutrition therapy. So all of
you started over. That's 4.5 years?
Really start over.
It was, I was like 26 and I was taking statistics with 17-year-olds at a community college one summer because I realized after I took anatomy and physiology at BC, I was like, oh, I could do this less expensively at other schools.
That's smart.
So the general courses like statistics I took at a community college, and then all of the nutrition specific courses I had to take at like a credentialed program.
Right.
And then you have to get your master's now as a dietitian. Actually, as of 2024, you have to get your master's. So I did a master's program, and then you have to do something called a dietetic internship, which is basically rotations in different settings of nutrition. So you have to go to the hospital and learn how to work with people that are on like a tube feed or have diabetes. So there's so many different rotations that you have to do. And the whole thing took me like 4.5, 5 years. So I didn't get my first job in nutrition until I was 29, which is kind of like late, but I don't regret it for one second.
You took the doctor's route.
What was
you took the medical doctor's route from the
kind of.
Well, honestly, that's where you normally hear registered dietitian is like really in the hospital space, and you're thinking about recovery and stuff like that. So when you graduated, what was your first role in?
So I actually, while I was in grad school, I was working kind of full time because at that point I'm like in my mid-20s, I have rent to pay, I got to work. So over the summer, had a job at a nearby college in Boston, and I was in charge. I was basically their wellness coordinator. So mostly what I did is I worked with their dining hall and students that had allergies, and I would help the chef accommodate students that had allergies. And then I would also kind of help with the menus, making them healthier. I opened up like a wellness smoothie bar in their dining hall. So I was doing that every summer through grad school just to make some money. And then when I became a registered dietitian, I was like, okay, if you want me to continue doing this, like we need to create a full-time position. You have to pay me. And my boss there was like so supportive. So they actually created a full-time position for me as like the wellness coordinator at this college. So I didn't work in sports my first year at all.
And then how did that transition happen where you thought, how can I blend this dietitian role and the athletic role together? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so during my schooling and during my master's program and my rotations, I had a couple placements with sports dietitians. So I work with a sports dietitian at Harvard where she was doing a lot of like counseling with like eating disorders and performance nutrition. And I also worked with a sports dietitian in Boston who has her own private practice. And so I would like sit in on her meetings with athletes. And I knew that was what I wanted to do, but in Boston, there weren't jobs like with the sports team available, nor was I qualified. So I had those two experiences, but there weren't really job openings for me here. So I realized that I might need to apply out other places, or I might need to do like another internship just to get more experience. So it took me about a year of applying to jobs until I got my first role as a sports dietitian at a Division I program. So it was literally like a year of rejection after rejection until I even got an interview. And then once I had the interview, I was like, I got to seal the deal because this is like...
Were you like the first of this kind at this first college that you got accepted for? Like, did you have to create the program, or did they already have something in place for you there?
No. So actually, this is partly how I got that position with not as much experience and being like a second career person. So the sports dietitian, this was at Penn State. The sports dietitian at Penn State had been there for 35 years, and she was getting ready to retire. So she was looking to hire someone who was like a little bit older. Not that I was old, but like I was 29, like I had life experience. So she was she was specifically looking for someone that had life experience, that had job experience, so that she could train them and then they could kind of take over the program when she retired. And she actually knew the woman who did the private practice in Boston that I had interned with. They were friends. So that's really how I got that position. Awesome. So yeah, she had created the program. She had been running it for 35 years. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel when I got there, but a lot of legislation around food in the NCAA changed around the time that I got to Penn State. So both of us were a little bit like in uncharted territory with some of the new regulations and having to navigate around them. So it was a little bit of like building a program that had been going for a long time, but kind of like steering it in a different direction.
Yeah, because that's very interesting for me. Like I think about, and I'm probably aging myself, but I think about when I was in college and I was a scholarship athlete. I was a, track athlete, and we didn't have special dietitians. As far as I remember, we ate in the dining hall. Like I remember, I feel like most of the things we did were similar to the students, at the university. Maybe we would get certain foods when we would travel. But I feel like as far as being at the university, I don't remember that being a thing. So the fact that you said you got the job and she had been there for 35 years at Penn State is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had been there, and her role, I would say, was primarily like counseling and team education and like giving team talks. Whereas now, nutrition roles in collegiate athletics is a little bit more, I would call it like food service. Okay. So it's like managing the food that your team is going to eat. So like, for example, like if we're going to be making smoothies for the track team at Penn State, instead of spending time counseling the athletes, now we're spending time budgeting for the supplies that we need for the smoothie, figuring out who's going to order the food, who's going to be receiving it, who's going to stock the freezers, who's going to make it, who's going to write the recipes.
Got it.
So so roles in nutrition, I would say like 10, 15 years ago are really different than nutrition or registered dietitian roles now that I'm seeing right now.
And I'm going to be honest, mine was more than 10 or 15 years ago.
It doesn't look like it.
At all.
We'll let that be.
Okay, so right. So, of course, we have like student athletes now, like young. Atoya has a collegiate athlete now, but high school, elementary school, middle school kind of thing, right? And for the life of me, there's not enough talking or whatever I can do for them to get, hey, you have to fuel your body properly. My oldest son had 8 games this weekend and he wanted to eat junk all weekend, right? So I'm trying to get some fruit, get some healthy carbs, whatever the case may be. So I think about just in general how high school athletes are they think they can do anything, right? Like I can eat anything and I can go out and perform and I'm fine. And then they transition to college where you have someone like you that's like, no, you can't eat just anything. These are the proper things you need to fuel your body. How has that reception been like just in terms of resistance or not, or have really they come into college and they're like, just tell me what to do?
I always say it's like 80-20. So like 80% come in and they're like motivated and they're like, just tell me what to eat. I will do anything you tell me to do. You're the expert. I'll do whatever you want. I want to be faster. I want to be stronger. I want to play. And then there's 20% that have the attitude of like, I've made it this far and eating junk food and I'm really good and I have no issues with my performance. So like, why would I change my nutrition? And those are the athletes that are obviously harder to work with because you have to convince them, you have to get a buy-in from them. And it's kind of like if you go through it's like the stages of change and readiness to change. If an athlete isn't ready to change, if they don't want to change, it's really hard to have them change those nutritional habits. Whereas if they come in and they're like, I'm ready to do whatever you want me to do, those athletes are easier to work with because they're motivated. Maybe they don't even understand that nutrition is going to be a performance edge, but they trust the process enough to know like you're a resource and I'm going to listen to you. So I see a variety of, readiness of changing type athletes.
Yeah. Speaking of change, you've utilized TikTok to showcase the importance of sports dietitians. How did you leverage this platform to educate and engage like broader audiences of athletes? And what was the kind of response that you received?
I think it kind of happened on accident. Like I have athletes all the time. Even though they know me, they will say, I saw this on TikTok. Is this true? I saw this diet trend on Instagram. Is this true?
Yep.
And it got to the point where it was like really annoying me. And I was like, you guys are just going to listen to anyone on the internet. And that was like, it was really like boiling my blood for a while. And I was sort of like, okay, maybe I should be someone that's on the internet giving out expert advice because I do, hopefully, I don't know everything, but I feel like I can give a positive message about fueling your body. So that's kind of how it started. And I started making content maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I totally didn't know what I was doing when I first started. There's another sports dietitian that makes a lot of TikTok and Instagram content. And I was sort of looking at what she was doing and was like, and she's been really successful with it. And I was sort of doing what she was doing and it wasn't working for me. And then I started to realize I just need to be myself. Instead of doing a lip sync and a dance and nutrition message with that, I just need to be my genuine self and talk to the camera, talk about what I'm doing. Help get some athletes on there so they can kind of show what their daily life is. And I think once I started just being more true to myself and genuine, I started figuring out what my niche was. And it's still changing sometimes. I'll post something and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize those were the types of comments I was going to get, or that's the type of audience. I've noticed, I think I first started and I thought my target audience was just athletes. And now I'm realizing it's a lot of parents of athletes. So
that's what I
get a lot of parents reach out to me being awesome. I have a kid in high school or a kid in college. Can you help them? And less athletes directly reaching out to me. So
I came across your TikTok account on my for you page, and so I've started following you, but follow from a parental standpoint, right? Because my husband, professional athlete, whatever, my kids still won't listen to them, just in terms of this is how you need to eat, right? This is what you need to do. But when they see someone on social media giving instruction, they are like, oh, okay, well, I guess I could try it. And they may have to hear it 72 times, but no, I definitely can get the notion of more parents trying to be informed of okay, how can I really get this person to be fueled at the proper level?
Yeah, and I'll get parents of female high school athletes being can you do a day in the life of a women's lacrosse player in their food? Because I do think sometimes seeing what an athlete is eating that you look up to, or someone that's just playing at a higher level, I think that can be really influential. And I definitely have athletes that will, try some new diet trend or try something food wise because they see an NFL player doing it, or their favorite Olympian athlete trying some new supplement. So it's just interesting to see who people listen to, and I'm trying to be someone that people are listening to.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
What are some challenges or I guess, what are some challenges you face? Because you are managing, well, I know football now, but previously it was all D1 sports for a school, right? And not every sport requires the same level or same type of nutrition. So what were some of the challenges you faced trying to navigate that landscape?
Yeah, I think when I first started out and I had 20 to 30 teams, I think it's just you feel really spread thin. You know there's so much that you can do, but you're limited in your time. So it's, I think for me, the challenge was just like deciding, do I give each team 5 to 10% of my time, or do I give one team like 80% of my time and then the other teams like 20% and they're going to feel slighted? And that was really challenging for me because I'm not someone that wants to feel like, I don't want a team ever to feel like I'm not giving them everything and they're seeing like, oh, well, you're working more with this other team than you are with us. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge, is just like time management and knowing that you can do more, but you don't have the resources to do more. So I would say that was the biggest challenge for me.
Are there any like emerging trends or developments with sports nutrition that you find interesting, or that you're like, I'm going to incorporate that into what I'm doing now that you may not have known about before? Or do you feel like it's pretty much been consistent across the board?
I think there's a lot of new products that you kind of have to keep up with in terms of the trend. So like, for example, like tart cherry juice in the last 5 to 10 years has been really big in the sports nutrition world. And same with like beet powder and beet juice. And then now this year, like red currant powder is starting to emerge. So it's sort of, okay, now red currant powder is emerging. Now I have to go look at the research, look at what's the difference between red currant powder and beetroot powder, and what type of athletes would this benefit. So I think there's just always new products and new research surfacing, and staying on top of that is really important because you want your athletes to have an edge, right? You want to be able to say like, you're getting this before X, Y, and Z team is getting this. And I do try to form relationships with different vendors. So like there was a product that I know some vendors were like trialing with NFL teams last year, but they were sending me samples and like, hey, try these with your athletes and see if they like them. And so, you know, just trying to get ahead of everyone else in nutrition for that performance edge. That's really important. And there's just always a new product on the market. Always.
So I saw that the UConn ladies, I don't know if you came across this, Atoya, but there have been like a lot of injuries for the women's basketball team. And like there was this entire thread of like going back to 2020, 2021. And like they broke down each year of like 10, 15 girls getting injuries, half of them season ending, right? Have you been faced with like maybe some sports teams that you were supporting, maybe were injury plagued or whatever the case may be, and you guys had to revamp everything from strength and conditioning to training to dietitian? Have you been faced with anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think at the end of every season, and this is every place that I've worked, like the staff kind of has to reevaluate everything they're doing. And definitely that usually happens like around this time now, like the end of the season. And you look at your injury report, and it's not just looking at the injury, it's looking at the type of injury. So it's like, are most of our injuries hamstring related? Are most of them bone related? Are most of them just in the freshmen? And so that's really where like it's helpful to work on a team because you have so many professionals and experts on the team. Like we have 4 to 5 strength and conditioning coaches that are so involved in the programming. And then we have an entire medical staff of athletic trainers and doctors and surgeons and orthopedists. And so if we are seeing a trend, like this year, there's X number more of this injury than there was last year, they can really kind of go and look deep into what they're doing to see if they need to make changes. And then I can look at nutrition. So let's say it's like, we had more like bone fractures this year than we did last year. I can kind of look at like how much vitamin D was I giving them this year versus last year? Was I making it mandatory? Am I tracking who's taking it, who's not taking it? Those sorts of things. So it's constantly reevaluating what you're doing from year to year and then looking at the trends with your injury and trying to reduce injury. But you also have to look at what's realistic. Like if you work in a contact sport, you're going to have injuries. But you can look at the severity. Like if it's a fracture versus a break, like we'd rather have fractures than a break.
I was thinking about, you know, what you have to do when you sit back and you go through an entire season. And then I think about the other side of it. How do you get this information out to younger athletes? And so I know you are the founder of Fueled by Farrell. And I would love to know your motivation behind starting this company. Did it have to do with, sitting back and taking all of these notes and realizing like there's a gap here? Like, what was your motivation behind starting that?
I think it just started with, I was making TikToks and I was getting a lot of comments on my videos, and I started just reading through all of the comments to kind of figure out like who is my audience, who's watching this. And I was just noticing trends in the comment section of people asking really similar questions. So like, what should I eat if I'm on the track team? Or if I want to gain weight, what are foods that I should need to eat? And for me, like I have a full-time job, obviously, so I can't be like doing one-on-one counseling with every single person that reaches out to me. And I also don't want to just like give people like free nutrition advice. I mean, I'm comfortable giving some amount, but I'm not going to like
for 4.5 years for it.
Right. Like, and also you just don't really know like what people's allergies are, what medications they're taking, what their family history of like weight fluctuation is. So you can't like from a medical perspective really give out like individualized nutrition recommendations without really like talking to someone. But I felt like there were enough people that just kind of needed like, like what should I put in my smoothie if I want to gain weight? So I started just making like nutrition guidebooks that people can buy off of my website so that they can get kind of like general information without necessarily needing to meet with me individually. Because it's also expensive to meet with someone individually and it's a time commitment. And I felt like there was people that really were interested in like getting into the, the deeper dive of their own personal nutrition. And then there was people like parents that are like, can I just like have some recipes? And it's like, we don't need to sit down and have a nutrition meeting for me to give you some recipes.
That's true.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started, and it's still growing. And it's mostly kind of like there's a lot more that I need to put into my website and resources. Like I'm working on like a smoothie guidebook right now and like a college recipe book right now. So it's sort of like I'm chipping away at new things that I can offer without being able to like individually chat with everyone that comments or has a question for me.
Yeah, I was thinking I went to the Vikings facility. They have a brand new facility now, and it's amazing. And they have, to your point, a smoothie shop right when you walk in, specifically for each athlete individually. And they put, exactly what that athlete needs in their individual smoothie. So my question to you is for college, for collegiate athletes, I know you guys do something similar. Do you ever have to get to the point where it's not just based on weight and, whether you get to gain weight or lose weight? It's not just based on, bones, vitamin D. Do you ever do like blood draws? I know you don't personally, but do you ever go that deep where you're like, okay, let me see why you're, potentially tired all the time or why you like, or is it just specifically based on, the exterior and what you see on the outside?
Yeah, it usually, in terms of doing things like a blood draw, it's going to depend on the specific team and their financial resources. So like I would love to have blood drawn on every single player, like do a vitamin D panel, do like omega-3 status panel. And a lot of college programs are doing that. And that's actually a big trend that I'm seeing right now is a lot of like finger prick companies coming out that will just do like, it's like $35 and you can get your vitamin D checked really quick. But when you times $35 by 120 players 3 times a year, it's like, oh, that's a lot of money. So there are programs that definitely are looking at blood work and those sorts of things. We're actually doing like a study right now where blood work is being done on athletes and it's being used as part of a study. So that's one way to kind of get around, like if you can do blood work on athletes. So it's something that in college I think is emerging to do more blood work, especially when it comes to nutrition. Like I would love to know every single vitamin D status for the guys on my team, given that it is a contact sport and bones can break. But since I don't have a vitamin D status on everyone on the team gets like a blanket vitamin D I have like liquid vitamins. And then if you're injured, if you have a stress fracture, I increase the dose for you. So there are certain ways you can get around it without like having the exact number. But I would love to have all the information.
You've mentioned vitamin D like as an example through several of the questions. Is that kind of like the most deficient nutrient you've been seeing in some of these athletes?
Yeah, it definitely is, especially in the Northeast where you don't get vitamin D from the sunlight easily because it's dark here all the time. And then vitamin D is also just, it's in certain foods, but not in the food. It's like, like liver, like you're not eating a lot of like chicken liver these days. So it's
No,
just
thank you.
not as readily available in our diet or in specific foods. And when you look at the research, it does show like almost like 70% of people in the Northeast are deficient in vitamin D. So that's something that we just do a blanket supplementation at a safe level where you're not going to take too much and have toxicity. And then if a player does get injured, sometimes they will get their vitamin D tested so that we can see like, oh, they actually were deficient and they got a bone fracture. So they need to be on a higher dose.
Yeah. See, I didn't think about that being a Northeastern thing. I live in Seattle, and I literally never thought about my vitamin D levels until coming out here, and you don't realize how much it really weighs, even just on being tired all the time. And
anywhere in the North, Tia, we all struggle in Northeast, Northwest, and North Britain.
I'm like, where is the sun? Give it to me.
It's a struggle, especially in the winter, especially. But I have a question on the other side. I know we've talked about athletes a lot, finding out about nutrition, but there might be someone on here that's interested in or aspiring to be a sports dietitian. For someone they're aspiring to pursue a career there, what advice would you give them? I know you talked about you going to school for 4.5 years to find your way, like, okay, this is now, I know for sure this is what I want to do. What advice would you give young girls that are trying to figure out, to your point, I don't want to tape ankles, but I do want to be, right here with athletes doing something different?
Yeah, I think now there's so many opportunities available to intern or volunteer or to do like a year-long paid fellowship in sports nutrition. Okay. So like right now I have 5 interns and all of them, or 4 of them, are getting credit for their coursework. So like I talk to their professors, like you will get your credit for your courses. And that's a really good opportunity to find out if it's right for you, because I think sometimes things can look more glamorous on the outside and then you're in it and it's like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I don't want to do this because it's not glamorous. Right. And then it helps me because I have people assisting me. I'm not like the one making smoothies. My interns are, but they're getting exposure to athletes and understanding like the language of athletes and the position groups and the dynamic between coaches and players. They're seeing it all.
Yeah, that's so true.
So having that experience is really great. And then you can also network when you're doing an internship or volunteering. Like you can get to know the strength coaches, the athletic trainers. So I always say like treat an internship or a volunteer position almost as an interview, because 9 times out of 10, a strength coach is going to leave that job, go somewhere else and be like, oh, we need a dietitian here. Did Farrell have any interns that, I feel like would be a good fit for this program? Or they'll just call me and say, hey, we have a position. Do you have anyone in mind? And a lot of my former interns are now working, in college sports or the NFL because, they were able to network while they were here.
That's awesome.
I was really excited to have you on just in general, because I think even when I think about young boys and they love sports, they want to be a part of sports, but the statistics are really low just in terms of people actually making it to the professional level, right? And how else can you be a part of a sports team outside of being a coach or a player? And so having people like you on that can show like, okay, it really takes a whole lot more than just a coach, a strength and conditioning coach and a player to get the team to where it needs to be, right? Like there's a whole other team behind them, and one of the most important would be a dietitian. So thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, so I do have one last question, and I don't know if Atoya have a follow-up, but so you've worked with D1 athletes, you work NFL, NBA, NHL, all the things. Which group would you say has been the most, like the easiest group to work with?
Ooh. Like
or the
team?
most disciplined. Well, it don't even have to be a team, but it can be like, oh, I actually enjoyed working with the MLB team. They were more disciplined. They were fill in the blank. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything like that,
but probably the easiest and the most disciplined athletes are the ones that are probably like in college and they know that they have a future at the next level after college. So kind of right as they transition from college to that next level, they'll really start to like lock in and do whatever it takes to get to that next level. So I'd say that's probably the easiest group to work with just because they're so focused. They know like the NFL Combine's coming up or they're gonna have like a big weigh-in or they're gonna have their body fat tested or their strength tested. And so they're just super motivated and will literally do whatever you tell them to do because they have that like light at the end of the tunnel situation, but it does not stop there. So
yeah.
That makes the most sense because they're laser focused, right? They're like, I'm doing whatever it takes. I'm almost there. So,
yeah.
And I think too, like to your point, going from collegiate sports to, for instance, like right before the combine, you're training and they have all of those things for you. They have the nutrition that you're supposed to consume. They tell you what you're supposed to do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, you know, and then go on repeat. So, yeah, to your point, it makes sense that they're like, okay, I'm going to do this now because this is only going to help me, you know, the next level. So,
yeah. And there's less distraction too. Like when you're working with a college athlete, they're not just like here to play football. Like they have school, they have projects they have to do, they have assignments they have to do, they have community service that they might need to do. There's so many things that they're doing. Whereas like when they're getting ready to transition out and they're just like at a training facility, like they have nothing else other than like eat, sleep, train. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So they can really focus on their nutrition because there's less distraction and outside noise and that kind of stuff.
Okay, I have one last question before we get in the 2-minute drill because I was thinking about this. I've heard of athletes that, to Tia's point, like when they finish, they might not make it to the next level, but they want to do something in sports. So they might go into coaching. They might be a strength trainer. They might become, one of the trainers where you go in to get your ankles taped, so on and so forth. Have you had an athlete that said, you know what? Farrell, I like what you're doing. I'm really interested in nutrition.
Oh, that's a good question.
Can you help guide me to where I need to be?
Yes. Yeah. I've had one of my close friends, actually, she was a softball player at Penn State, and I was her team dietitian. And she ended up, she was studying nutrition in undergrad, and she ended up interning with me, becoming a registered dietitian, and now she is the director of nutrition for a football program at a Power 5 school. And I had a women's basketball player at Penn State who also is the director of nutrition at a football program at a Power 5 school. So yeah, I've definitely had athletes that are like, this is really interesting. I want to transition my career. And a lot of times those individuals make great sports dietitians because they can really relate to the athlete. Like they've been there, they've done that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I did like continue my athletic career in college. Not that I can't relate, but I do think it gives you a little bit more of like an edge, a connection when you can say like, I was a Division I athlete, which I was not. So yeah, I've had,
kudos
a couple.
to you. That's saying a lot about what you did because they didn't these are people that actually learned from you and learned how to take care of their body. So you should pat yourself on the back for that.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, so are you ready for the 2-minute drill?
Yes, I'm an indecisive person, so, I have to
Not today, Farrell, not today.
First thing to come to mind.
Okay.
All right.
Tia, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. What's the top song on your workout playlist right now?
Honestly, I work out at an Orange Theory, so it's whatever they're playing.
Okay. Okay. What's one snack you always recommend to athletes before a big game?
Fruit snacks.
Really?
Like Welch's fruit snacks, yeah.
How many unread text messages do you have?
Over 100.
Oh my gosh. That just hurt my brain.
If you can eat only one meal for energy before a marathon, what would it be?
Oatmeal.
What is your go-to topic for small talk?
Probably my dog. Or dogs. Pets.
Go-to guilty pleasure food?
Pizza.
Spend a month without a car or a month without the internet?
Car.
Legit. Most unusual food combination you've ever suggested to an athlete?
A lot of people that need to like gain weight, I'll tell them to drizzle olive oil on whatever it is that they're eating. So like if you're having pasta, put olive oil, vegetables, olive oil, rice, olive oil. So that might be weird to some people, but pretty much olive oil on everything.
Healthy fat. There you go.
A healthy fat.
Okay, last question. What is next for Farrell?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like I'm sort of just living day by day here. I love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing, but I am the type of person that's like, what's next? What else is out there? And I think having like my social media platform is fulfilling that what's next for me right now, because it does give me like a creative outlet. And it allows me to kind of have something outside of like my regular job that I can be excited about and continue to grow. So I'm definitely going to be like growing my platform and having new offerings. And like, I love being on this podcast and I'd love to do more podcasts and just kind of like be more of a presence on social media. But I'm not ready to leave working for a football team at all. So
that's good. That's a great comment. I wanted to ask you something personal before you go. For us moms that are, we're no longer working out as much as we used to, and we want some healthy snacks, what would you suggest for us?
I think like nighttime snacks are just
that one snack to get you through that's healthy. Because when you're rushing
that midday
and you
crash.
just want to grab something real quick, what is the one thing you're like, I'm going to grab this because it's healthy, because Farrell told me to?
Well, I always say you want to grab something that's high in protein, because protein is satiating, meaning that it's like going to make you feel full for a longer period of time. So if you grab something that's like carb based, it fulfills you for like 10 minutes and then you're hungry again. So I tell this to a lot of my athletes is like a low-fat string cheese, because you're going to get like 7 or 8 grams of protein. It's not super high in calorie. It's easy to kind of like bring with you. Or like a Greek yogurt with some fruit, like some blueberries in it.
What about for the lactose intolerant?
If you're lactose intolerant, hard-boiled eggs.
Hard-boiled eggs.
It's like, whatever it is, just get some protein in it.
Hard-boiled eggs.
That's good to know.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. You were amazing. And you guys, if y'all have any questions, Farrell, tell them where to find you.
Fueledbyfarrell.com or my TikTok, Fueled by Farrell. You can message me.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to put links in the show notes.
Thank you. You were amazing. We appreciate you.
Thank you. This was so fun.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. That is our show. For the latest on the Inside Lines podcast, make sure to follow us at Inside Lines Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook.
You can also listen online and share your favorite episodes at our website, which is insidelinespodcast.com. And if y'all don't know by now, we have a YouTube channel. That's right. Follow us at Inside Lines Podcast and make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you get all the notifications when the new episode comes out.
Until next time, leave it all out on the field. Thanks for listening.